Integrated Communication Sciences, who are taking their turn to present in the person of Dr. Lawrencia Agyepong. More on her later, but let's give her a round of applause now. You'll get to hear more about her. Who is stepping up to speak on a very interesting topic. Doc and I have taught political communication and engaged in several discourses from a political point of view, so she's awesome, she's great. She'll be a great role model for, all of you here, trust me. She has the fire and the energy, everything, the intellect. All right, so that's for declaration of purpose and other things. So without wasting too much time, because today is on my day, I would like to introduce our chairman for today. Interfaculty lecture, we need a chairman, so that I'll go and sit down. Me, I'm just the servant. So the chairman will preside over our activities. And we are very blessed as well to have another dean. Okay, to have a dean as our chairman. Let's clap, let's recognize that. More on the chairman, but I would also want to welcome all lecturers and all staff, all management, administrative, everybody at GIJ who has made time to come here. And let's clap for our lecturers and our staff, senior members who are also here. Thank you very much. And for the students, thank you for turning up as well. It's a good chance to learn. It's part of your university experience. Do you know that? Yeah, it's part of your university experience to attend some of these lectures. Okay, maybe some of you too might be able to do an assignment right or something here, but it's a learning experience. So take it from that point of view, so that you pay attention. You understand? It's not a waste of time. You learn. Okay. So everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome to these events. I would continue and then introduce the chairman so that we can just get everything going. And then we'll get the chairman's opening remarks as well. So our chairman for today is Dr. Modestus Fosu. Dr. Modestus Fosu is very well known to all of us over here. And for those who don't, today is the chance to know him. For some of you attend this school, you don't know the dean of your faculty, student. You are lost. You don't even know what grade is. So it's a chance to also get to see them personally. They do a lot of work, so maybe you don't get to engage with them. But this is he's the dean for the Faculty of Integrated Communication Sciences. Great intellectual by any stretch of the imagination, and he will be the perfect person for this to moderate and give his feedback and all of that. So without wasting too much time, I would want to kindly thank Dr. Fosu for accepting to be the chairman and to welcome him for his opening remarks.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I have to thank Dr. Sikanku, Director of Grade. Before I say anything, I maybe have to do this because I may forget to do it at the appropriate time after the presentation. And I want to highlight this Director of Grade, our research outfit. He has been doing amazing things to keep UniMAC-GIJ somewhere in terms of the visibility so far as our research efforts are concerned. He has been indefatigable all over the place, and I appreciate the effort he's been making all this while. Please, let's give him a big hand again. So Dr. Sikanku, you are very much appreciated. Thank you very much. As I move on, I have to also say that the idea of me coming to chair this occasion came very late in the day, and so I didn't plan to be the chair. And so I have no clue about all that's going to happen, particularly also talking about the topic. I'll touch on that shortly. So I'm just standing in for our acting rector who should have been here to fill this gap. And moving on from there, when I saw this topic. But before even then, I was notified some time ago by the director of DRIP that our faculty, it was the 10 at the time of our faculty to have a rep to deliver something like this. So we should look for someone. We tried here and there, we were not getting anybody. And then just last week I said, Dr. Agyepong, let me try her and see what will happen. I mentioned her name to my faculty officer. He said, yeah, it will be good. So I called Dr. Lawrencia Agyepong. And amazingly, because you have tried other people, excuses kept coming, I'm not ready. I say, look, anything at all, the dream director has said it. Even if it is your conceptual idea, it is good to come and present something and see the responses, the feedback you have from colleague lecturers. But I wasn't getting anybody until, I don't know how I forgot about her, but she immediately took all the burden from my shoulders, accepting immediately that at short notice, I will come and do the presentation. So I have to, please let's thank her too for this singular, what word should I use? Singular, yes, gracefully accepting to relieve the whole faculty of a big burden on me, and then moving on to the director of DRIP. Dr. Agyepong, we are very, very grateful to you. Now, talking about this topic, I have to be honest, I have no clue about political communication. That's not my area, so I don't know anything. The closest I have come to dealing with political communication is when our acting rector, you know him, he craftily lured me into rhetoric on political messages, speeches by presidents and so on, because that is his area. He's an authority in rhetoric. So when rhetoric goes to deal with political campaign messages, so the two of us did some work over there, and I got into that realm, but it was not mainstream political communications about the rhetorical aspect of it. So for me, that is the point at which I get into the topic. And the topic for today is deadly whispers, understanding the role of gossip in political campaigns. Interesting, deadly whispers, understanding the role of gossip. So I can only do textual analysis from the linguistic perspective, even at the level of the topic. We know whispers. Whispers connect strongly to gossip. If you think about organizational communication, gossip in that realm is called grapevine. It has a very unique role to play in internal communication. That's all the functions within that space. But I was attracted by the adjective attached to whispers. So just now I was asking her, why do you say deadly? Because whispers, gossip, it can be positive too, can't it? You can whisper to someone for positive reasons and so. So, I don't know about political communication. This is about political campaigns. Like everybody here, I want to learn, and the director of DRIP has mentioned that it's a learning opportunity for all of us. So on this note, I want to welcome colleague lecturers who are here. I can see the Dean of the Faculty of Journalism and Media Studies is here. Please kindly wait for them to see.
Let's clap for him.
Yes, let's clap for him. I can see our Dean of Graduate School, Dr. Probe, is also with us. And other colleagues, I can see Madam Tabika is here, Mr. Shaibu is here, and then Dr. Albin, where is she? Yes, she's here, and all other colleague lecturers I haven't seen and I may not mention. And we have some big guys in our administration. I can see our officer in charge of publicity is also here with us, and everybody else. Now I acknowledge also our students, those who are here. It's a sign that you are preparing yourself to also step into the shoes of your lecturers who are. See, that is the sense in which I welcome you here. Talk to your colleagues. They said it. This is an opportunity for you to start getting yourself immersed into the research and academic culture of the academic community. If you don't do these things, you may not know the steps you need to take as you move along the academic ladder. Now, my last point, as we listen to these lectures, it's not so much about the attractiveness of the content that we're going to listen to. As academics, let's think about what we call scholarship. Scholarship is the technical aspect of what goes into research and how it is delivered. So, for example, if you think about the research problem, you think about objectives, you think about methodology, that these are maps that define scholarship, and that is why we are here. So on this note, I will take the steam out of the sail. I will return the microphone to the director of grade to call on our speaker for today to come and give us this lecture, which we eagerly await. And I know that we are all going to have an interesting time listening to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fosu. And he's right. Actually, acting rector was supposed to do this, but he was notified. I mean, very, 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 very shortly, you know. But he really accepted to do it, and it looks like he's always been prepared for it. He's zoomed into the chairmanship role, you know, with a lot of alacrity and adeptness. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Let's thank our chairman for welcoming all of us. All right, I would now like to call upon Dr. Caroline Abuaji da Costa to introduce our speaker for today. Please, let's clap for Dr. da Costa.
Our chairman has already done my work for me. He's done the introduction, but I'll just add some few words to it. Our speaker today is Dr. Lawrencia Agyepong. She's a lecturer with the Faculty of Integrated Communication Studies here at UniMAC-GIJ. And she has over 12 years of experience in media and communication studies, both in industry and academia. She holds an MSc in Media and Communication Research and a PhD in Media and Communication from the University of Leicester in the UK.
Very praised, they clap.
She's highly researched. She has a number of articles in reputable journals, with her recent co-authored book titled Understanding Essential Issues in Research Methodology. Today we are honored to listen to her presentation on Deadly Whispers, Understanding the Role of Gossip in Political Campaigns. Without much ado, and with an applause, I introduce to you Dr. Lawrencia Agyepong.
Thank you very much. I feel so honored, and the accolades that I've received today is rather intimidating for me. But I'll try and do something with this topic because it is very much at the early stages in research. And it was Dr. Fosu that actually encouraged me to come and present something that I'm working on. So that is the working title for the research that I'm doing. But today I'm not going to go into the details because it's still, I've just done the first part of the analysis. I would mention that briefly along the way, but it will be more of an anthropological exercise today. So we will delve into our understanding of gossip. For those of you that are here that are expecting to hear some titillating stories and some gossip. I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint you because this is very much an academic exercise. So we are going to look at the scholarly understanding of what gossip is and what it does. And then we will touch on gossip in the political realm. And then I'll talk a little bit about my own research and where I have gotten to and the initial analysis that I have done so far. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to encourage you so that when it finally comes out, you'll be interested in reading it, because trust me, there's going to be a lot of interesting things in there. And this year especially is going to make it even more interesting because we have all the major political parties doing their, choosing their flag bearers. And the gossip has already started, hasn't it? So I'm hoping that at the end of it, when it comes out, you'll be interested. Now, full disclosure, before I actually start, I'm sure there's been a lot of questions. Why gossip? I mean, you are a political communicator. Why are you looking at gossip? I'm looking at gossip because one, it's an interesting topic. Two, it's something that you can't run away from if you are interested in political communication, because it's very much part of the communication process. And three, I myself have been at the receiving end of some very, very interesting gossip. Some of which I'm sure you know, others which you don't know. So my experience with gossip actually started in 2003. I was working as the PRO of Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. And for some reason, the National Democrats newspaper decided to focus so much attention on me. Actually, I didn't even know I was a person. I had to go back to my husband and say, "Were you married to somebody else?" The byline was the arrogant wife of Agyepong and how she's blowing the taxpayers' money. Arrogance, yes, I am a bit arrogant. I'm an academic. All academics are a little bit arrogant, so that's fine. But blowing taxpayers' money, how, where? I thought about it. So I actually didn't think I was the focus of it. I thought maybe my husband is married to somebody else. So I went like, who is blowing the taxpayers' money? In fact, that byline went on for 6 months before they eventually did a major story behind it. And the story was that I have thrown a huge birthday party, invited the cream de la cream of society. We drank champagne and caviar. Trust me, I have never seen caviar before, so I don't even know how it looks like. And it was a glamorous event. I was like, when did this happen? I was trying to think, what party did I do? So, I mean, as more details were coming up, they mentioned that the party was at Coconut Grove and all of that. I was like, oh, my office people at one of my birthdays decided to do a party for me. My office as civil aviation, made up of my assistants, the drivers, the secretary. So, funny enough, they started calling themselves cream de la cream of society because everybody was shocked. The second one happened in 2009. In 2009, that was when I started work with Institute of Journalism, Ghana Institute of Journalism. And there was a whole article about me. And the article was talking about the fact that I have been brought in to cause disaffection among students for the ruling government. How can just one lecturer be able to do that? But that was interesting. Of course, there have been so many. I think if you Google my name, you will find a lot of interesting stories about me. And that is when I started getting interested in the whole topic of gossip. In 2009, I actually started working into it, but I threw it somewhere along the line because I was interested in pursuing something else for my PhD. But I eventually circled round and came back to it. And I did that because quite a number of things happened in the 2020 elections, right? Before and just after the 2020 elections, there were a lot of interesting stories that came about our presidential candidates. I'm sure you all remember the Papano thing, you know, and all the salacious stories that came out. You all know about the, what's the name? Something Bruni. Sewa Bruni story. And then there was the one about the Minister for Security with the pajamas thing. So that was when I decided, let me go back and look at this very interesting topic again, because now, more and more, we are seeing that gossip is beginning to play a central role when it comes to political campaigns and then also about political actors. So is it possible to look at how such gossip actually shapes people's opinion and whether that opinion can translate into election victory or otherwise? So that was what I decided to do. So as I said, it's in its very early stages. So today, with every academic exercise, of course, one of the key things that you do is to look at the literature that exists on the topic. So today, I will talk into details about the literature that exists on gossip, and then also on political gossip or gossip about political actors. And then I'll feed that into how that gossip, what other people have said about the role that gossip plays in shaping opinion. Then we'll come to my main thing. So the tendency to gossip is at the heart of the social life of many people. We all gossip, don't we? Yes, one way or the other. People who claim that they don't gossip, they still do. It is because the concept of gossip and the behavior that constitutes gossip, its origin, definition, and purpose have formed the basis of a lot of theoretical and empirical research. And I found that out when I was doing my literature review. There's so much literature out there written about gossip. So for the purpose of this presentation, I want to throw more light on gossip in general and highlight its effect on the formation of opinions, especially on political actors. So the first question that we can ask ourselves, what is gossip? How do we define gossip? The definition of gossip has always been complex and controversial. As Dr. Fosu said, he immediately picked up on the title, Deadly Whispers, right? So why are we saying it's deadly? Because as we said, gossip can be positive, but we will come to that. In fact, Foster in 2004 and other researchers argue that there is still no clear definition of what can or cannot be labeled as gossip. He argues further that the absence of a third party is the only restriction necessary to classify a controversial message as gossip. This means that when we are talking about gossip, it will always be about someone who is not present. Tunney actually also takes it further by defining gossip as requiring only the repetition of news about a third party and the passing along of everyday details. Fox, however, opposes the definition of gossip as being the telling of tales about absent people. And he says that people can gossip about themselves. He gives the example of clients or psychotherapists disclosing relevant truth about themselves. He believes that such disclosure may be called gossip. In other words, gossip about the self. Thus, the defining feature of gossip is that it contrasts the discrepancy between public and private life. Gossip, therefore, becomes the instrument, and I quote, for those who wish to know how life is lived behind the social mask, unquote. I would, however, agree with Cutler, Parker, and Lawrencia 2002 that when we talk about gossip, information about the self will be better labeled as self-disclosure and not gossip. And it is only when it is passed to a third party that it can be labeled as gossip. In addition, gossip about others who are present is better labeled as public disclosure or ridicule, which may or may not be made inoffensive by other facets of the situation. For the most part, most researchers agree that day-to-day gossip refer to talk about absent third parties. And for the purpose of this research, I want to strongly agree with the definition given by DeBecker 2005. And I quote, "Gossip is information about the deviant or surprising, which both depend on the context, traits, and behavior of one or more third persons, most often non-present but potentially present in the conversation, and where the sender has true or false knowledge of the gossip content." And this is in page 51 of DeBecker 2005. Now, when it comes to gossip about political actors, Collins defines such gossip as unverified information about a political person's private life that he or she might prefer hidden. Kim and Kim 2007 also refer to gossip about political actors as everyday political talk, defining it as, and I quote, "non-purposive, informal, causal, and spontaneous political conversation voluntarily carried out by free citizens without being constrained by formal procedural rules and predetermined agenda," unquote. But for my research, I chose to define political gossip as new and or deviant surprising information present in interpersonal communication or media outputs. And I want you to note down the media output because we will come to it later on, about the traits and behavior of one or more political persons, the content of which can be negative, positive, or neutral, and where the sender has true or false knowledge of the gossip content. Context is necessary, considering the establishment that gossip is present. When we talk about gossip, it is very important that we look at the context. Depending on the context, the same information might be called gossip or not. In some feminist critics, gossip has come to be nearly synonymous with women's talk in general. In other words, a lot of people believe that women are the people who gossip more. However, Fine and Rosnell actually found parallels between what constitutes gossip in men's conversations, where gossip is defined generally as an idle or social conversations. This they classified as shop talk, shooting the breeze, or killing some time together. So when it came to men gossiping, they actually referred to it as talking shop or shooting the breeze or killing some time together. However, there is very little empirical evidence to support which gender gossips the most. So while there's a belief that women are the ones that gossip, in fact, research shows that men also indulge in gossip, and there is no distinction between which of the genders gossip more. The next thing that I want us to talk about is gossip good or bad? The debate on whether gossip is good, bad, or both has become one of the biggest issues that researchers and lay people argue about. Bellmaster, Hang, and Voss in 2004 point to the fact that psychologists in general show little respect for gossip and generally attach negative connotations to it. And I quote, "Psychology has not generally had much respect for gossip. The traditional and prevailing view has regarded it as an indirect form of aggression akin to teasing," unquote. Cavell, in his research, asked some elderly people he observed to describe gossip. He noted that most of his respondents referred to gossip as bad talk, even though his analysis showed that both negative and positive gossip flourished among these elderly people. Rosmore insists that gossip, like a rumor, can steal illusions, wreck relationships, and stir up a cauldron of trouble. The question then is, why does gossip have such a negative connotation? Benzine, for example, claims that the bad connotation attached to gossip is mostly due to the consequences or effects gossip can have. De Souza also suggests that this may be due to the power relations between the actors of the gossip. Gossip is seen as a very powerful tool, and just like other kinds of power, it is feared and condemned. Many of the condemnations of gossip are based on ethical value, since it revolves around presumed rules of privacy. Buyok, for example, sees gossip as indisputably morally indefensible because of this violation. Scottman, however, argues that gossip, far from violating the privacy of people, is in fact consistent with privacy norms because it reduces direct and public conflict. People usually know they are being or will be gossiped about when they deviate from accepted social norms. Some researchers have suggested that to rule out misunderstanding, then, different words should be used when referring to good and bad gossip. For example, Giles suggests scandal when referring to negative gossip, while others too say we should refer negative gossip as bitching and positive gossip as peer group news giving. Spark labels positive gossip as serious gossip and negative gossip as malicious gossip. It is, however, quite difficult to distinguish what accounts for positive or negative gossip. And the trouble with defining gossip as two different kinds puts it in a clear black and white frame. It means that there is a clear line on what can be defined as positive or what can be defined as negative gossip. However, gossip cannot always be cast in these two extremes, since there are some gossip that will fit somewhere in between. Sparks, in her article In Praise of Gossip, concludes that, and I quote, "The trouble is that no clear lines defines what I've called good gossip from what I've called bad. They inhibit a continuum. One can slide from one to the other and slide back again," unquote. It is therefore sensible to conclude that based on the social and psychological functions of gossip, positive and negative evaluations must be included in the definition of gossip, even though the everyday idea of gossip usually refers to the negative aspects. Now, if we have that understanding about gossip, then what then is the function of gossip in our society? Levine and Alak propose that gossip is universal because it is psychologically and socially useful as a way of social learning or social comparison. This view is supported by Morel, 1994, who proposes gossip as a way of getting information about others that gives guidance for learning one's own life or increasing one's feeling of self-worth. Thinking of the function of gossip in the context of social learning and social comparison is embedded into a larger theoretical context offered by researchers of evolutionary psychology. Dunbar 2004, places the original purpose of gossip provocatively as the central player in the evolutionary story of human intelligence and social life. The usefulness of gossip to our ancestors have been covered extensively by Rebecca 2005, where she distinguishes between strategy learning gossip and reputation gossip. She defines strategy learning gossip as a way of using information and experiences of others to deal with adaptive problems within our environment. By doing this, our ancestors eliminated the extreme cost of relying solely on their own experience. Through this strategy, they learned which things within our environment were detrimental to our survival and which were useful. With reputational gossip, according to Rebecca 2005, it was used to detect the health status of others, find suitable mates, and deal with same-sex competitors, provide the vital information needed to detect cheaters, solve problems of social contracts, and the management of long-term alliances. So according to evolutionary psychology, gossip was a very important tool to pass on relevant information, which was very important for our survival. Researchers using evolutionary psychology believe that gossip does develop because of evolutionary pressures, and this psychology has permeated into our modern society. Rebecca et al. 2007 believe that strategy learning gossip and reputation gossip are usually intertwined in our daily conversations. Evolutionary perspectives continue to provide framework required for understanding the complex role of gossip in social relations. Other research literature show a similar theoretical framework found within the followers of evolutionary perspective of the purpose or function of gossip. The framework identifies 4 major social functions of gossip rooted in social exchange theories and The 4 social functions can be grouped under the following: information, entertainment, friendship or intimacy, and influence. Gossip is seen as socially beneficial in that it facilitates information flow, provides recreation, and strengthens control sanctions, thereby creating group solidarity. Gossip serves as an effective mechanism for information, message, and an exclusive means of gathering or dissemination information, and have proven to be particularly beneficial in low accessibility networks, which are spread thin by high mobility within modern social groupings. It is the unequal distribution of knowledge that makes the information spread through gossip valuable. The gossip produces reputation and position within the triad is essentially determined by the potential and factual access that the person has to information about others' private life. Buellmaster et al. 2004 agree with this view, stating that frequently listeners will infer that the gossiper is in possession of special knowledge or understanding of social rules and standards, thus elevating the social status of the gossiper. In other words, the person that always has access to information about people's private life is held in very high esteem within the society. Gossip can function as entertainment, and this can be inferred by observing people engaged in conversations while passing the time gossiping. Although the gossiper might certainly be sensitive about the information being passed, this does not deter the gossip existing solely for the entertainment, and or recreational value of it. It is a sheer fun, which for most gossipers explains their involvement, right? Very often, when we are indulged in gossip, it is the sheer fun that somebody is divulging a very important information to you. That is what makes it entertaining. Friendship or intimacy function of gossip refers to the way in which groups are brought together through the sharing of norms. These shared norms are used to establish boundaries which distinguishes insiders from outsiders. Sharing gossip is a way of sending messages to the listener about the gossiper's confidence in the recipient. If the gossiper is relatively sure of the security of the community, he or she will feel safe in disclosing to the listener, and this becomes a way of cementing the relationship. Thus, gossip is less likely to take place between casual acquaintances or strangers than between friends. This is because shared social meanings and histories are essential to understanding the subtleties of gossip. Gossip influence functions have been widely discussed in research literature. It is acknowledged to be an efficient social mechanism to reform or stigmatize the sinner. Gossip is used as an informal policing device for controlling free riders and social cheats. For gossip to be influential, people must agree on the norms for behavior and what constitutes acceptability within the social group. It presents arguably the most common form of spreading the norms of the social group because it requires no special skill to produce. And many forms of social comparison and therefore social understandings are expressed in the form of gossip. Now, do people believe the gossip that they hear? Right? We all know that it's entertaining, it is fun, but when you hear gossip, do we believe the gossip? Several researchers claim that most of the gossip people hear is untrue. And those that may be true more often than not have been manipulated one way or the other to make them quite unreliable. It is the unreliable nature of gossip, and that is what generates all the negative sentiments and connotations of gossip. A person's belief in gossip is dependent on their assertion of the truthfulness or otherwise of the gossip. This assertion is based on the level of trust between the gossiper and the receiver of the gossip. Some research have shown that gossip that occurs among trusted friends and individuals can usually be regarded as reliable information. This, however, does not make the gossip that is passed on among trusted friends and individuals truthful. Neither can it be a falsehood. It makes the gossip more believable. In the same way, gossip from an unreliable or not so trusted source does not make the gossip untruthful or a falsehood. The gossip from such a source becomes less believable. Thus, in my opinion, gossip can be both true and untrue, but it is the level of trust among the individuals between whom the gossip occurs that makes it believable or not. So, can we say then that the media can be a source of gossip? And if they are a source of gossip, can they be seen as a trusted source of gossip? We know that the media allows us to learn about others. We learn about what others have done and use their behavior strategies to help us make future decisions when faced with similar problems, which is referred to by DeBecker 2005 as strategy learning gossip. Now, when it comes to politicians are popular gossipees in the media. They are of value to the audiences because of their high status and because their professional actions, and I've put professional in quotes, and decisions can directly or indirectly affect our lives. Therefore, it is even more important to be updated about their actions. The media reports about the private lives of political figures and also about their professional actions. In both cases, such news can be classified as gossip. In politics, media gossip can be seen as both strategy learning gossip, which focuses on the behavioral information regardless of the gossipee's identity, and also reputational gossip, where the transmitted traits and behavioral information is attached to a specific person known to the sender and receiver of the gossip. The boundaries of media gossip are therefore hard to define, since a lot of media productions can then be fitted into the discourse of media gossip. DeBecker identifies two types of media gossip: interpersonal media gossip and mass media gossip. And I'm going to get very technical here, explaining that. Interpersonal media gossip, like interpersonal gossip, is between people who know each other and trust each other to exchange information about a third person. Scarlett Newman explains that with interpersonal media gossip, the gossip is transmitted through a media channel and then sneaks into the daily gossipy conversations of people. Media gossip involves a source and an audience who do not know each other and who have not established a real connection. Therefore, mass media gossip cannot be called real gossip because it doesn't conform to the intimate trusted person's relationship between the sender and receiver of gossip. This makes that gossip less reliable than interpersonal media gossip. The reliability depends on the reputation of the source. And since the exact source of mass media gossip is an unknown sender to the receivers, it is confronted with reliability problems. I must add here that during my research, I looked at what we call interactions between media personalities and audiences, and where there is a high level of interpersonal interaction between them. In this case, it's a very, very technical psychological issue, which I'll break down on the second part of my research, when they will see them as a trusted source, so they will believe the story more. Now to the crux of the issue that we're talking about. Can gossip influence public opinion? The literature presented points to the fact that gossip can influence public opinion. Gossip operates to shape judgments of the significance of issues by stimulating perceptions of risk or danger, where risk and danger might be considered as comprising selection principles. Gossip can therefore be used as a supplier of information that people use for their cognitive processing of opinion formation. In a research conducted by Parker et al. 2008, on an opinion formation within friendship networks, they found that communication within friendship networks can help individuals enrich their understanding of politics. Using two panel survey experiments, they demonstrated that the dissemination of an individual's opinion about the hazard posed by public policy can have both durable and significant effect on the policy judgments of friends. In essence, interpersonal gossip within a friendship network helps shape the opinion of individuals within that network. Kim and Kim, 2008, concluded that everyday political talk is used by citizens to construct their identities, achieve mutual understanding, produce public reason, form considered opinions, and produce rules and resources for deliberative democracy. They believe that everyday political talk offers the only practical way through which citizens construct and review their identities, understand others, produce rules and resources for deliberation, enhance their opinion, transform the domestic spheres into the public sphere, and bridge their private lives to the political world. Habermas in 2006 points out that considered public opinion of responsive voters are formed through engaging in everyday political talk, reading newspapers and watching television. In other words, communicative reasons are produced not only by interpersonal talk, which I refer to as gossip, but also by media gossip. There is much evidence confirming a close relationship not only between news media, conversations, and public opinion. For gossip to influence public opinion, such gossip must come from a trusted source. The familiarity with political figures provided by the media triggers the same type of gossip mechanisms passed down through evolution. We use that information about people, in this case politicians, to decide whether to trust them and entrust our safety and security as well as that of our country to them. Establishing trust in political figures is hard when we do not know the reputation of such politicians. Given the proposition that gossip exists as a way of acquiring reputation information, it can therefore serve as a useful tool for knowing politicians' reputation, which is a prerequisite to trusting them. So it is this above background that I've provided that informed my own research on gossip and whether gossip can, in this case, shape opinion about political actors who stand for elections. So I will just go through briefly because, as I said, it's still an ongoing research. I have just collected few data. So the methodology, I did a mixed methods research, so it was both quantitative and qualitative. And the two methods were adopted to ensure that the subject matter was thoroughly covered and both perspectives were incorporated in the study to provide relevant insight into my research question. At the moment, I have looked at, or I've sampled a total of 309 subjects. And this has been made up of 300 eligible registered voters who are residents in Accra, 5 media journalists, and 4 representatives of presidential candidates who stood for election in the 2020 elections. So what I did was that with the media personnel and the presidential candidates, I used personal interview structured and unstructured, which was both open-ended and closed-ended questions. For the 300 registered voters, I used self-completion questionnaires, which was distributed to them. Now, I must say that I am planning on going to different cities, main cities, to do this data collection. So please excuse the rudimental nature of my analysis because it's very much in its foundational stage. So what did I find? The first thing that I wanted to find out from people was whether the media is seen as a trusted source of political gossip. Now, the results from the initial analysis that I've done so far, especially from media practitioners and politicians, they believe that people actually believe the the kind of stories that are put out by the media. And the evidence of the questionnaire that I administered also supports this assertion. The results indicate that just about half the respondents take media gossip seriously. So even though they believe, they do not take it seriously. It clearly shows that although people agree that media is a source of gossip, the majority of them do not consider the media as a trusted source. And these findings are consistent with previous research by Becker and Shelley Newman, which indicates that an intimate trust-based relationship between the sender and receiver of the gossip is important when determining trust and believability of the gossip. And such a relationship is lacking for media gossip, making the gossip from such a source unreliable and low on believability. There is, however, evidence from the research to support that most of the respondents have established a real connection, especially with radio presenters. And people who show the highest consumption of radio had the highest belief in media gossip. And this is because, as put forward by Becker 2005, interpersonal media gossip is very much seen as interpersonal gossip between people who know each other and trust each other to exchange information about a third party. Now, when it comes to gossip and voting preference, which is the second part that I looked at, the data obtained so far provides an interesting observation on the issue of gossip's effect on voting preference. When it comes to positive gossip, the results provide evidence that positive gossip will have a positive impact on voting preference. However, when it comes to negative gossip, less than a third of the respondents indicated that negative gossip will have negative impact on their voting preference. So less than a third actually confirmed that they would do. The results are consistent with results from the interviews with media personalities and politicians, which clearly indicates that very few people's voting preferences will be affected by political gossip. In order to understand this, because I was intrigued that when it comes to positive gossip, people were likely to be influenced by the positive gossip, but when it came to negative, very few people. So I was intrigued. So I went back to look at secondary data on voting patterns in Ghana, to look at how voting patterns are formed. And I looked at it from research conducted by Lindbergh and Morrison in 2005 and Muzaffar et al. In 2003. And the findings indicated that Ghanaians still vote according to party and ethnocentric lines. Therefore, while positive gossip can serve as a reinforcement of their choices of voting preferences, negative gossip will not have the same effect. However, as noted by Agyepong 2017 and Manson 2009, swing voters account for a significant percentage of the voting population. And it is very important to have that at the back of our mind. Now, let's say, and I am just conjecturing here, I haven't really done that if we are saying that swing voters in Ghana make up a majority or is a significant number, then what will happen if such swing voters are influenced by political gossip? It is very likely then to influence the outcome of the election results. But as I said, I am still looking at the research and still doing my analysis. And hopefully, at the end of it, I would have something good to say. So in conclusion, although the research only showed just a small percentage of people are influenced by political gossip in their voting preference, that effect cannot be completely dismissed. Election results show that the voting margins between the two major political parties are usually very slim. That small percentage can decide the outcome of the elections. Losing as little as 3% of votes due to negative gossip, or gaining as little as 3% of votes due to positive gossip, can result in losing or winning an election in Ghana. Thus, gossip cannot be ignored in politics. It serves as a source of information about politicians, which is needed to determine whether we can trust them and place the safety of our country in their hands. Thank you very much.
Great presentation. I think we all enjoyed it, didn't we? It's not easy to take a very interesting but substantive issue of great public concern and then come at it from an intellectual angle for deeper knowledge and understanding. So this was good work. Thank you, Doc. I'm going to hand over to the chairman because he's the opinion for today. So I'll hand over to him and then he would do the job. So, Mr. Chairman, can you move here?
All right.
Please, let's go.
A very interesting presentation by all standards. I mean, after listening to her, who doesn't gossip here? Dr. Santi, our dean, I can't see any journalist who is not a gossip. And he's one of the greatest journalists we have in this country, as a practitioner and as a teacher. Thank you. All right. So we see how a very harmless, innocuous way in our society, gossip, has been dissected and presented to us. So it calls for reflections as we leave this place to look at the various dimensions in which it's been presented. Now, the biggest thing I have noticed or taken from this presentation is about the literature review. All right? We have very rich, incisive analysis of literature on gossip. The literature has told us what gossip is, what it does, and its role, not just in our social context, but also important in the political context, talking about political campaigns. I very much enjoyed the intro, how she entered into the presentation, using her personal experience. These are things we have to start learning, how you get into presenting a topic, particularly something we think is ordinary. How do we enter to prop it up and make it and buy into people's mind to appeal for them to have a second, more critical look at that thing. So initially I was thinking about an experiential, phenomenological perspective to the presentation, but then I was wrong because she adopted a different perspective because it wasn't about her. She just used herself to let us understand better what gossip is. She also led us, as I mentioned earlier, into the literature for us to understand scholarly definitions of gossip. Please, we need to go back and take note of all the various definitions of gossip. And then she took us through the political angling, how gossip connects to politics generally, and then to our Ghanaian perspective. So the big question I will ask, which she did, is gossip good or it is bad? She managed somewhere along the line to have a position in between the two, that maybe it can be this way, it can be that way, or in between. The in between, I don't know, how we can have gossip that is not good, it's not bad. So it is what? Neutral, I don't know. But then questions, think about it and let your questions flow. Now, I won't waste the time, but I'm also interested in the findings. The findings. So, media as a trusted source of gossip in Ghana, we have to think about that. That is a critical thing we have discovered through this research. And please, let me say that it is not conclusive, as she pointed out. This is work in progress. She's just giving us a sneak peek into the kind of thing she's doing and what is likely to happen. So we should be curious to know eventually the bigger picture she's going to come up with. The conclusion, which is significant to us at this point, is that gossip is crucial in any political campaign, and that we don't have to take it for granted. But before I let others come in, I have my own questions, but everything I want to pose to Dr. Agyepong, and then she can react to it before others come in. What I find a bit missing in the discussion, for me, I am beginning to have a unique, well, not unique, but a special interest in contextual discussions in academia, because I'm passionate about where I belong. I am African, I am Ghanaian. So when we do literature, I want to find out, so where do we locate ourselves within this literature? Because I noticed that, yes, she pointed out a lot of literature on gossip. But all the names that kept coming, I was waiting. What are we also writing about ourselves in terms of what we think academically that gossip is? Can we contextualize gossip, or we have to assume that it's universal? So all the foreign people who have said gossip is this or is that, are we accepting that, or we have our own understanding of gossip based on our experiences of how it is? Because after listening to her, it's to me as if gossip is so neutral, it's so harmless. It can be good, can be bad, but I get the sense that then gossip is nothing really for us to worry about. But within our context here, how does gossip really work? And how are our academics defining gossip? Are we to take what we have from elsewhere as what it is? Or we have to contextualize and say that within our context as Africans, as Ghanaians, to us, this is what gossip is. So I'll throw that to her for her to think about. Then also the issue of the gaps in literature. They should be clearly defined so that we see what has been done, so what is lacking. The data speaks for itself, it is here. But how we connect the data to literature is what we have to think about. So on that note, Director, let's welcome questions from... Yeah, okay, so after she has responded to it, colleagues can come in, students, you can ask all the questions you want to ask for us to have more discussions on the issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Fosu. Yes, it's very interesting that you mentioned that in my literature search, I actually did not come across gossip as a topic, and in fact that is what also encouraged me to do this research, because I think that very often because the conceptualization of gossip within our African context is still very negative, and people don't see it probably as a worthy research to do. I didn't come across any research that focused on gossip in Africa. I'm hoping that when this comes out and is published, at least it will open the way for more people to be interested in this subject, not just because our understanding of gossip, but for it to be seen as a scholarly work that they should be interested in, the anthropological underpinnings of what gossip means in Africa. What I came across was when I was looking at issues to do with evolutionary psychology, with gossip. I realized that some work has been written about how our ancestors used to pass information to one another, and there they didn't even refer to it as gossip. They talked about information sharing, which for me is also part of gossip, because once it's handed in from one person. So in fact, if we are going to stretch it, then we will say that most of our oral tradition is based on the principles of gossip, but we haven't looked at that. And I think that would be a very interesting research area to go into. The second one has to do with the gaps here. So one, the gap is in the fact that there doesn't exist any research on gossip. The second one is also the fact that there has been no research that has been done looking at the role of gossip in politics in Ghana, and this is the first one. So those were the gaps that I saw that I was hoping that my research can fill.
All right, thank you. These are the things sometimes we should be interested in, and I would have loved that you make a very emphatic statement, even in the presentation, to let it be known that this is an area that has received very scanty attention in our jurisdiction. You see, that is very, very critical. And that is the scholarship I was talking about. Thank you, Dr. Jack.
Thank you for setting the ball rolling, Mr. Chairman, and for the early response. Okay, so now it's the turn of the audience. We've heard our speaker, we've heard Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot from both of them. But I do believe that the purpose of this is also to make it more conversational and participatory. And one of the great things about interfaculty lectures is the spirit, of debate, back and forth. So this is the time for that, to fulfill the true relevance and spirit of interfaculty lectures. We don't have all of it, and we're moving to the other exciting part. So let's get the audience, get a bite at the cherry at this point. Otto, our Dean of Graduate School has his hand up, so we need to give him the priority. Please, let's welcome
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you. I don't know the name I should give to you now. Gossip intellectualization laureate. Yes. I want to touch on the question Dr. asked, and also support your gap clearly. Well, we don't have Africans or Afrocentric ideas, but since the first, so there's always the first time. So even that's also a gap.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. Let me deconstruct your variable called gossip into gossip bearers, gossip likers, and of course gossip haters. Now, referencing your media as a trusted source, where do you locate it? Is the media actually the source of gossip? Do they gossip? Do they like the gossip? Or they hate? Thank you very much. And I like the presentation. Kudos.
Thank you, Dr. Oh, okay. We'll take a couple.
You're thinking the same, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
So just a follow-up. But I would also want to commend our colleague for such a good work. For me, I think that it's time between the two of us. We described her as our first lady for some reasons. That is why I said it's time. She's going to get so much money from it by the end of this particular work. The follow-up to Dr. Bobe's question. Yes, the media, but is it impactful? Is it effective? I'll cite instances. 2008, 2012, one of our aspirants was tagged drug addict. He worked in 2008, he worked in 2012, but I think he didn't work in 2016. It will not work again. Somebody was tagged Papano. Maybe he went, I don't know if he's going to work this time around. So, how effective? Yes, we accept it for a period, but does it go on as far as the elections are concerned? That is the question. Then I also like that in terms of methodology, you factor in terms of responses, people's background, right? Yours is subjective. From where I'm coming from, I'll believe in it, but it's not everybody believing in what whispers or gossip as you described. Thank you very much.
So Dr. Asante is the dean of journalism and media studies. That's why he's concerned about media. Thanks, Doc. So in order to give our speaker the chance to, it's not easy to be in the hot seat. So she needs to take the questions. She prefers it 2 questions at a go, and then we continue. So that's the preference. So we'll let her respond.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the 2 questions are related. It's, as I said, it's an ongoing research. One of the key things that I'm looking at when it comes to looking at gossip in the media is also the rise of what we call gossip media. So they actually call themselves gossip media, like Gossip 24, for example, where they say that what they do is to gossip. So it is part of the analysis about those people. But when it comes to the relationship between the gossip that comes out from these people and then audiences, as I said, the believability comes with they being seen as a trusted source, right? Very often, people tend, and that is what came out from the research, people tend to believe the stories that are put on radio more than anywhere else for some reason. But there is a part of the questionnaire that I missed that I didn't want to talk about here because we are still analyzing. It is called parasocial interaction. So parasocial interaction, we are determining the kind of parasocial interaction that exists between the media source and audiences, because it actually shapes how people see or trust the source. So we have specific questions. It's about 35 questions that people are supposed to take through. And they are very mundane questions, but they actually show the level of parasocial interaction that exists between audiences and media personalities. Now, we realize that with the media personalities from radio, there was a very high parasocial interaction that exists between them and audiences. For some reason, they see them as part of their trusted networks. Now, once that trusted network comes in, we can refer back to what DeBecker 2005 said, that people then will believe whether the story that the person is putting out is true or false. People will tend to believe any gossip that is shared from a trusted source. So that becomes important. The second part is when we are looking at whether this gossip can be sustained. It's part of the analysis. I didn't mention it here. What I realized, especially in the 2020 elections, is that a lot of the political actors found a way of actually turning the negative gossip to their advantage. And it takes a special skill, and we in political communication, we love that, whereby you actually take the negative about you and turn it around to become positive. So there was an issue about, I think in 2016, there was an issue about the Calipo, Lanado with the Calipo, where there was this story, and it was turned around, right? In 2020, there was the issue of the Papano, which from what I have looked at, didn't have the kind of, it became more interesting and salacious. And the fact is, there's another aspect of the analysis that I didn't talk about, how we ourselves perceive gossip, right? So you remember I talked about the entertaining factor. People see it more as sheer entertainment and something to talk about, and also makes the political actors seem more human to them than it actually affecting their fortunes. And it also comes back to our values and belief system as a people. The Papano story, when I threw it back to respondents, what I realized was that polygamy is not really frowned upon in Ghana. So while it is an exciting news, it really doesn't do anything, because within our social norm, I mean, men being faithful, men not being faithful is not something that is really frowned upon. So I realized that it really depends, one, on the context, the content, and then also on the source of the story. I'm sure that also answers part of Dr. Brobe's question. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but thank you very much about that. I mean, it was a very difficult topic to try to delve into, because I realized that people, as soon as you say gossip, they're like, you shouldn't touch that. But I really wanted to touch that because I thought it was interesting. Yeah, that's why I was saying that I realized that it depends on the context, the content, and the source. So, for example, with Nanado's one about the drug use, in fact, maybe eventually I have to look at the specific stories and break them down, do some kind of a discourse analysis, but that would be a bit too much, maybe at a later research. But the source is also important. The source of that story was not really clear. It wasn't somebody that was necessarily believable. So, of course, it was something people consumed. And it's one of the things that came up. But people thought that it was interesting, but they didn't believe it because the source was not believable. So,
I think that they did very well to bastardize the source, because the source was WikiLeaks,
yes.
and some prominent Ghanaian journalists were quoted as having participated in the debates that that came out that time.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, the source is important, but I am thinking that let's look at who is listening in terms of believability, and I think you also have the reasons.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. John, for such a wonderful presentation. And my question is very simple. I'm wondering if your preliminary findings indicate any gender dynamics. I'm asking this because the perception is that women, and to borrow Dr. Robbie's term, are gossip bearers, are often seen as gossip bearers. So I'd like to know if there are any indications, any gender indications within the findings you have seen.
And she is, maybe you can let us know who she is.
Oh, yes, sure. So please, this is Dr. Benedine Azawi. When Dr. Azawi is speaking, you should talk gender. Yeah.
And she's the head of department.
And she's the head of department for journalism.
Yeah, and media studies.
Media studies. Is it media studies? No,
Journalism.
Okay. So Dr. Benedine Azawi, head of department journalism, faculty of journalism, and media studies. And gender advocate. We've had 2 males, but Agyepong is here. I better get 2 females.
Yes. Because I'm also a gender person.
Yes, because she's also a gender person. So we'll have Dr. Rosemary for being here. Dr. Rosemary for being here.
Thank you very much, Agyepong, for attempting such a controversial subject. I think whenever the word gossip is mentioned, we are all inclined to think in the negative. So I just want to understand what really will constitute positive gossip. And secondly, what is the place of misinformation in all of these discourse? Thank you.
So the first question, did I do a comparison with the gender? Well, the literature actually shows that men gossip as much as women. And I mentioned it here. Even though the understanding is that women gossip, or anytime they mention gossip, is synonymous with women. The research there, which has been done extensively by others, actually show that men gossip as much as women, and that there's actually no distinction between the two genders who gossip more. I didn't look at it in my own research because I was looking at a specific part of gossip, looking at political gossip. But maybe I should add it to my questions when I visit the other regions. It'll be interesting to try and find out. But the belief is still there. People, anytime you talk about gossip, the first thing people say is that, oh, that is women talk. But in actual fact, I mean, anthropological studies have shown that men gossip as much as women, just that they give it a different name. So that is there's no distinction, but it's something that would be interesting to look at in the context of Ghana. I didn't add that to my research. The second one is about, every time we talk about gossip, we look at the negative connotations, right? So what then will constitute positive gossip? Now, if we look at the definition of gossip, right, and if we want to break it down, basically, it is about talking about a party that is not present, right? Someone who is not there. So if I get together with Dr. Fosu and have a discussion about Marcia, the technical term, it still falls under gossip. So when we talk about positive gossip, we are talking about gossip that is not dealing with the negative aspect of the person. But, I mean, if some people after here decide to talk about my presentation, it is still gossip. And if you say, oh, the presentation went very well, it was good, that is positive. Gossip doesn't always mean that you are talking about malicious things. And as I mentioned in the previous research, there have been researchers that have advocated for different names to describe the different kinds of gossip. That if it is negative, we should call it malicious. But the word malicious doesn't necessarily deal with just negative gossip. You know? So it can be negative and malicious, but there can be some negative gossip that is not malicious. It's the truth about the person, or it's supposed to give relevant information about the person, but it might not be malicious. In the same way, if we say that positive gossip, I mean, others have come up with names for us to classify it. And in fact, there's one that said it should be called gossipy, which I found very funny. How do you call it that way? But yes, we realize that it's not all gossip. If we look at gossip in terms of talking about a person who is not readily in the vicinity, it is all gossip. And it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. I hope that explains. Oh yes, the misinformation. I honestly did not look at that. I didn't include, because I wanted to concentrate on a specific research topic, so I did not look at misinformation. Probably in another research, I probably would look at misinformation. I have written something about misinformation and politics, but not in the context of looking at it from gossip. So I think it would be interesting to probably look at gossip as an aspect of misinformation, or how misinformation plays into gossip. I didn't look at that.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much for this wonderful exercise. Honestly, my eyes have been opened to regards to the gossip. I came here thinking gossip is only negative, but you have succeeded in creating the impression that there's another side of the term that we need to also pay attention to. Now, your work, I should say, is a work in progress, and so we may not have the answers to all the questions we raise in this hall. Otherwise, I have a lot of questions that I would have asked, but I think it would be unfair for me to ask those questions since you may not have all the answers. Now, your work has pointed out that in this context there is a gossipee and a gossiper. The recipient of that whole conversation. Now, in our politics, is there a situation where the gossipee also creates gossip around himself, so as to test the waters? You see how, for instance, someone wants to contest for a particular position. Now he wants to see how the people would accept him. So he creates a gossip around himself. He's able to see whether he fits, he can really embark on that journey or not. So is there a situation where the gossipee can create some gossip around?
Thank you, Mr. Shaibu. Mr. Shaibu is also like media history, right? Okay, so.
Thanks once again for the presentation. I must admit, I came in late, so a lot of the conceptualization, I was a bit lost, but the questions have clarified that for me and your responses. But the methodology, you mentioned that it's preliminary, and so we should pardon the foundational nature, but a lot seems blurred to me. I never heard anything about sampling, how you went about it, how you focus on. You even mentioned yourself about the swings being a major part, so with constituencies, and then you also mentioned you'll be going to other cities, but I didn't hear where the data was collected from, whether it was just in Accra, and if in Accra, do you focus on any of the constituencies in Accra, and also, so that's one, the sampling approach, then also the quantitative bit of the work. I don't know what preliminary quantitative analysis was done, but I also kept hearing effect, but in all the presentation and impact, to prove causation, that between variables, that gossip actually affects people's voting intentions and all that, certain types of things have to be done, and I didn't see any of those. Maybe I want to believe they are in the work. Didn't just present them to us, but are they? Because in the conceptualization seems okay, but to give a bit of gravitas to the work, then the analytical and the methodological bit has to be as strong as your conceptualization.
Thank you, Dr. Priscilla Odu. Now we know we're in the university sector. Conceptualization, gravitas, and everything. Yes.
I didn't present into details my own research because it is work in progress. Yes, we actually figure that out into the data collection. It is a very, very complex data collection mechanism that we use. So I didn't want to take away from what I wanted to talk about today. So basically what I did was to give the background to the research itself, focusing on the literature out there on gossip, and also try to draw some inference of it into the initial analysis that we've done. So I did mention that we have sampled 300 respondents so far. They were all in Accra. What I didn't go into details is the sampling process. We actually divided the groups into 3. So we had people that and you have to understand that when we are talking about effects research, you always have to look at it in terms of experiment. So of the three groups, we have some that we actually dealt with negative gossip. Then we had some that dealt with positive gossip. And then we had a control group that was more neutral. And we used that to do the comparison. So later on, when we are done with everything, I will actually do another presentation that goes into details about the methodology. And it's a very interesting methodological approach that we use. It was taken from DeBecker 2005 and DeBecker et al. 2007. And she has done a lot of work on gossip. So that is what we use. And I did mention that we were also even looking at social interaction that exists between audiences and media. So I will do a whole presentation on this. This is jumping the gun a little bit. But so far, the collection has been in Accra. And I think that answers both your questions. Now, the other one, I'm trying to understand. Oh, yes. That was a very interesting. I didn't look at that, but that's a very interesting thing. I did mention that in the literature, there was the advocating for not calling information that people leak out about themselves as gossip, and call it more like self-disclosure. So I did not look at it, but I mean, it's very interesting. Within our political campaigning, some of the strategies people use is to get people to start a rumor about themselves. I didn't look at that as part of the study. Otherwise, I will keep going and going and going, and there will be no end. But that will be something interesting to consider at a later stage. Whether to call it self-disclosure or to call it rumor, self-rumoring. I don't know, but I didn't look at that at all. Yeah, I think so. That would be interesting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. It's something that I'll look at.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Agyepong. Very well presented. The details were quite intriguing. I'm interested in your distinction between believability and taking seriously. I sense some kind of intersection between these two and how you define and use them in your work. The other thing is that it wasn't too surprising when you mentioned in your data that radio tends to be more believable as a media source of gossip. So it takes me to wonder, what about other sources of media, the digital media and television? Are you looking at those others as well? And then I think it will be nice, if we are considering it, to look at what are the characteristics of those people who believe, say, radio, who believe, say, digital media and television, based on what we know as those who would usually access this kind of media and how they access and use them.
Thank you, Marcia. She's also a lecturer here. And finally, Daniel.
Good morning, Doc, and thanks for the insightful presentation. All along, I don't know whether I'm the only person lost here, but I'm still trying to understand the distinction between what we know in our political propaganda and that of gossip. Because most of the time, what happens is that propaganda is sometimes also seen as sort of gossip about people. So I want to see the distinction between political gossip that you have discussed now and what the Ghanaian context of propaganda that we know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, so as I mentioned, it's still very much at the foundational stage. I didn't particularly look at, let's say, digital media or radio or television. I didn't make those distinctions. As I mentioned, more and more we are seeing the establishment of media digital media that call themselves gossip, like media. So that was a whole subset that I became interested in, which I want to look at. When it comes to the media consumption, because I was looking at whether media gossip is believable or is seen as a trusted source, my concentration was to measure the parasocial interaction that exists between the media personalities and their audiences, because that gives an indication as to whether gossip from those sources will be believable or not. So I didn't look at it in terms of what you are doing. There's a limit to what you can do when you are doing research. I mean, very often I have a colleague of mine that I work with, and he will always say, oh yes, I know you became interested in this, come back, this is what we are looking at. So sometimes the research can take you to all sorts of places, and you have to force yourself to concentrate on exactly what you started with. But the discussion here has opened my eyes to the possibilities of looking at gossip from different angles. And I'm so excited that I managed to get so many people interested in the topic of gossip. And I'm hoping that I won't be the only one that will be interested in that area. But as more and more of you are thinking about it, maybe we can have some collaborative research looking at some different angles of it. So that's very interesting. So with the issue of propaganda and politics and looking at gossip, gossip can be a propaganda tool, but gossip is not necessarily always propaganda. Because if we understand what propaganda is about and what gossip is about, yeah, it can be a tool, but you cannot then say that everything about propaganda is gossip. So that is the main difference there. But it's something that I actually didn't also look at. As I said, I was looking at something specific. So maybe something I should consider and draw a distinction between the role of propaganda and the role of gossip in one of the analysis. So I would really think about that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have one of our students, finally. Let's clap for her. She's going
Please, I'm patient. I want to ask if there is any code for gossip, any common thing, like 10 for gossip.
So let me help you.
Yeah.
You say you want to find out if there's a quote from gossip. So are you talking about like a definition of gossip or an example of a gossip? A quotation of gossip. You want to know what that gossip is? She should have an example of it. Okay. Oh no, we are just trying to understand it. That's all. Is that what you meant?
Yes, I want to know, like, if there's a quote you can get from gossip. Any quote, like they only have love quotes and so that's what I want to know.
Okay, we'll take one more.
Okay, that's interesting.
Thank you for this sweet presentation. My name is Tom. And then I wanted to ask that, does gossip have an impact in today's economy? Thank you.
Questions are straight, short and straight to the point.
Okay, so I will take yours first. Impact on economy. I wasn't looking at that. I was more interested in political campaigns and opinion formation. So I didn't look at that. But of course, I mean, if we want to look at gossip in its various forms, yeah, I mean, any information can have some sort of impact, whether negative or positive. I'm not an economist, so it is very difficult for me to veer into that area. I wouldn't dare to go to that area. Then to yours about the codes. No. It would be too presumptuous on my part to think I'm so much of an expert on gossip to come up with a quote about that. Even the leading scholars on gossip, like Rebecca, don't have any quotes. We talk about, and in academic work, we usually deals with definitions and concepts and empirical evidence, no quotes. I can talk about Papado. That's a good quote, you know. So, which one? The pajamas, you know.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's what I can say. So no, I think it's beyond me. I am still trying to delve into that research. I wouldn't dare dream of being at that level to give any quotes.
I think I know what she's trying. She's trying to get a quote for a writing assignment.
Please, Dr. Lawrence, I want to know, according to your research, how do you respond to gossip as a politician? Is it good to respond to every gossip that you hear about you?
Okay, I'm trying to round up, so we got the last.
Thank you very much, and I say that I'm very happy I attended this program. I got what I was trying to say. How, like, when you were hearing about the gossip about you yourself, what impact did it get on you? Like, how did you take it?
Thank you.
Okay. So the response to gossip by political actors, I actually had some here that I didn't talk about. So I asked in the interview, how do you treat gossip? And look, a lot of political actors take gossip seriously. And they would want to respond because there's always that perception in their mind that, especially when you are dealing with a country where we have swing voters and where we have very, very little margin between the loser and the winner, you cannot afford not to take seriously any information that can give negative connotation to your candidate. So yes, they did mention the fact that they take gossip seriously, especially when it is gossip that will be damaging to the candidate. Now, for example, with the Papano issue, you realize that there was very little response or reaction. And I pointed to the fact that within our own social values, we do not see infidelity as a big issue. And so the response there of a candidate being unfaithful, that even though it's negative, it's a negative story, the fallout is not as much as being spoken of as being a thief, for example. That is seen on another range, and that would cause them to react. So the reaction is usually based on the type, of gossip and how it's perceived to impact that candidate. And I didn't talk, as I said, I didn't really go into details because I'm still analyzing. I didn't want to do half analysis, and I would want to really present the whole thing. So that is it. So the second one about how I reacted to gossip. Okay. I think that's a very interesting question. How did I react? I think I went through all the stages of grief in my reaction. First, I didn't understand. What is so interesting about me to make into the news? I'm a very, very boring person. So I was fascinated that anyone will find me interesting enough to do a story about me, and sustain it for 6 months. So first, I didn't believe it, and I was like, okay, they definitely are not talking about me. As I mentioned, I actually went to my husband and said, who is this other wife that you have? So denial, and then also got very annoyed, about the fact that it was everywhere, and then people were commenting on it, some were believing it, and then to wanting to react, I actually took the newspaper to court. I decided to take the legal angle, and then finally acceptance. I was like, okay, if they think that I'm important enough to talk about, I have to accept it. So that was basically my reaction. But I don't know, I think probably political actors are very much used to stories being put out there about themselves. I am not a politician, and so of course your reaction to it will be a little bit different. I hope that answers your question.
Does it? Yeah. It's a good way to end the Q&A. You circle back from where you started from.
Yeah.
So Mr. Chairman, it's all yours now.
All right. All right. So. Hello. Okay, so closing remarks. I think we've all had a good time, and I have to say that this presentation breaks the ground into an emerging area in gossip, particularly in our context, in Africa and then in Ghana. And so those interested, and many of us should be interested to continue, because as you can see, with the questions coming in, there are a lot of areas, inroads we can look at, how it affects the economy, the social aspect of it. She is focusing on the political campaigning aspect of it. So it should become an area of study we have to continue to delve into. I want to say that Dr. Lawrencia Agyepong is one of the key experts now in political communication. In this country, we don't have a lot of them. And so I'm proud that in our faculty there is someone like that. And I have to let you know, yes, I have to let you know that she has led a team, and now there is an MA program in political communication management that is at the later stages of acceptance by the Ghana Tertiary Education Council. So I'm very hopeful that by next academic year there will be a master's program here at GIJ, the first of its kind in political communication management. It's all her work in that field, and I'm proud that we are getting someone at UniMAC-GIJ who will become one of the key names when you mention political communication. So on this note, the discussions will continue. Should be available if you have any questions you couldn't ask, or if later some ideas come into your head and you want to continue the conversation along the lines of the presentation. She is easily available. She's currently the head of Department of Communication Studies within the Faculty of Integrated Communication Sciences. So we thank GRIT once again for this organization, and the faculty will wait for its turn next time for us to have an interesting session again. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our chairman has done a fantastic job today in moderating the ship or the sessions today. Let's thank Mr. Chairman. Great feedback. I would also want to thank our speaker for getting us started. You know, one of the things that we want to do in a university is not just to consume knowledge, but to produce the knowledge. And I like the fact that the topic she has selected is not abstract. It's something that all of us here, including the students, can identify with. And it's not something that is far from her. It's something that she has been very close to, a very substantive, tangible thing, and then she has, dissected it in a way that helps us to understand its impact. That is not an easy job by any measure, and it's a great contribution to the production of knowledge as a world-class communication and media university, and she has contributed to that respect. I think she deserves a round of applause. In fact, she deserves a standing ovation. Let's stand and clap for her. Yeah. Thank you, Doc. Good job. So, Doc, we are grateful. We can sit. It takes time to do this stuff, you know. It takes time to do this stuff, so we are grateful. I would also want to thank everybody who came here today. Our lecturers, our staff, our senior members, administration, every student, everyone who took the time, media, who took the time to come here. We know there are 1,001 things you got to do, but you've made time to come here, so we are very grateful. I am also especially grateful to the staff at Directorate of Research and Innovation and Development and Public Affairs, who is always behind us. Business development. You know, business boy is always here. In fact, we have to clap for her. She has been a consistent supporter. Yeah, she's always here. You know, always here to support. And it gives us the feel that we are all one university, even if it's not academic. And that's awesome. So we are very grateful for that. There is one last thing I wanted to say. I think it has escaped my... Yes, social media channels. So we would announce that we do have Drake social media channels, YouTube and Facebook. You just have to put in Drake, D-R-I-D, UniMAC-GIJ, UniMAC-GIJ. Just search for it on Facebook and follow the page, like it to get more tantalizing gossip or research on the page. Go to YouTube, follow the YouTube page as well. Like it, and please share it among your friends and among the general public as well. I wanted to acknowledge the Dean of the Faculty of Public Relations, Advertising and Marketing, but she just stepped out. You know, a couple of people just stepped out, so I'm not able to do that. But still, in her absence, we are grateful that as a dean, she came here to also support, even from a different faculty. So we are grateful for that. So I think officially we can bring. Thanks for the questions too. I mean, great questions and contributions, comments, and all of that. And Dr. Agyepong came with one of her best friends. I don't know if it's the best friend or what. I thought it was her sister. Is it? Best friend, yes. You know, and I have to record. Let's appreciate it. Let's appreciate it. Let's appreciate it. You know, all of us in life need besties who support us when we are giving presentations and intellectual discourse. So that, well, it's not easy. You see the question that we're coming. Yeah, I'm sure the friend here has been of good support. So thank you for coming to support as well. So thank you guys for coming. We hope this will not be the last time. Just follow Drake, come to the programs, contribute. And one day you never know, you'll be here. Dr. Solis Asafo is here. I don't want to worry her too much. But we thank her for also coming. Maybe next time she'll be the one here. You never know. Yes, so Doc, maybe she'll be the next person. Mr. Peter too is here. Dr. Obing, all of our lecturers. We look forward to having you another time. Have a blessed weekend and enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much. Thank you.